I'm Charlie from Chadwick Optical. Have you ever noticed you have two eyeballs? You probably have. Or maybe you haven't. And then, have you ever noticed that with those two eyeballs, for the most part, you only see one thing in the world? That's pretty magical, isn't it? That magic is called binocular vision, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more. First, with a little exercise. You have to hold one finger out and one finger in towards your eye. Look at the further finger, and you'll see that you see two fingers closer. Now look at the close finger, and then you'll see that you have two fingers in the back. That's wild. And that is binocular vision. So that's your two eyes. And for the most part, your two eyes are constantly in this state of seeing two things all the time, unless you focus on a thing. So the thing that you're focusing on, you see one of. Everything else in the world is seen in double. But you're not sensitive to it anymore until we create some kind of circumstance under which you can actually detect that this phenomenon exists, like the finger test. Let's talk a little bit more about the magic that's going on behind the scenes there with your eyeballs. So you may remember this is like some 4th grade science class stuff, is that your image that is broadcast onto your retina is upside down from the world. So this picture here is actually the scene that you see, and then this is what's broadcast onto your retina. So you can see everything's kind of flipped, right? It's flipped, inverted, upside down, all that stuff. And then it takes that image and sends it down a bunch of different pathways, ultimately to be processed at your visual cortex. So your visual cortex is where all the seeing happens. So the retina is basically a light bucket that that collects light from the outside world and then sends it down all these different pathways to the visual cortex to be processed as sight. Now, what you can see is that this thing takes a bunch of different paths. And so this, let's take a couple for instance. So this image, which is what you see in the upper left of the world, and this image, which is what you see in the upper left in the world in your other eye, goes a couple different ways. So this one comes this way, and then this one comes this way. What's weird about that is that at some point, and each one of these quadrants has two different paths that go back to your visual cortex. And at some point, your visual cortex takes all those 8 different images and stitches them together in a way that you see as one thing. Now, let's say that your one eye is a little bit out of balance with the other eye. What you might see is a slightly different image, and now your brain takes some energy to stitch that image together. Now, a couple examples of that is if you're tired and or under the influence of alcohol, you might notice that you're more prone to see double vision. And that is your eyes just kind of not being able to hold together the way that they normally would. Alternatively, you may notice when you're on a computer or reading that your eyes get strained. And that is your eye muscles holding together to keep that single image, and it just being a struggle to do so. Now, so this is binocular vision, and it's this magical thing that we kind of take for granted if we have two eyes. But the brain takes some energy to do all this work. And what we will notice is that if there is something wrong with the eyes, we will notice all kinds of weird symptoms, but the symptoms aren't obvious. What we might experience is a headache. What we might experience is tiredness, migraine. It's not your eyes saying, hey, we're tired. It's more other symptoms. And that's why binocular vision disorders, after a really long time, really haven't gotten a ton of attention, because we think of it as, oh man, I get headaches like every day. And then you just take Advil and treat that symptom. But for binocular vision, managing binocular vision and going to an optometrist and working on vision therapy, strengthening the eyes, and working on that can really yield some incredible results: reduction in migraines, reduction in headaches. and also accelerated recovery from head injury and that sort of thing. So that is binocular vision, and some of the bad stuff that can happen if your eyes aren't working together. And hopefully that's useful.